Hi, and welcome to Trauma-Informed Teacher Training for Take Back the Night teachers and facilitators. I'm Erin Lee Henshaw from the Mind Body Project, and I'm going to be walking you through various best practices and exercises for yoga and mindfulness teachers who might be offering classes or programs for Take Back the Night. So I'm a trauma-sensitive mindfulness trainer. There's more information about me in the introduction video if you missed that. And today I'm going to discuss best practices for trauma-sensitive teaching for a public event aimed at providing support for sexual, relationship, and domestic violence survivors and people who want to support this community. So it'll be about an hour long. We'll do some meditation, seated movement, and thinking. And due to the sensitive content of this program, you might experience overwhelming emotions or triggers based on what I talk about and what we experience. So just know that that is a normal situation, but also make sure that you're aware of the community of trusted friends or professionals if you need additional support. The goal of this program is to create safe spaces to look into our minds and bodies without being triggered or re-traumatized by the experience. And just a note on complex trauma and PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, is that yoga and mindfulness are not seen as a cure for these types of challenges, but can serve as an entry point for further exploration and healing. So what I'm offering today are ways to create practices, exercises, and safe space to explore what might have been something from our past or something uncomfortable that is resurfacing. So we'll do a bit of grounding, followed by an introduction to creating a trauma-sensitive environment for teaching, talk a bit about healing language with the CHOPS framework, review the trauma-sensitive container, and also general best practices. So let's start with our opening grounding, and this is going to be something called resourcing the room. So take a moment to bring your hand to your belly and your other hand to your chest, and you can allow your eyes to close. I'll keep mine open, and begin to notice where breath is at in your body. Noticing belly rising, chest rising, belly falling, chest falling. And take a moment to notice where breath might be strongest in your body. Perhaps becoming aware of the heart rate, the cool air coming in through our nostrils, the warm air coming out. You can keep your hands giving yourself a gentle hug or allow them to fall down onto your legs. And imagine the room that you're in for a moment. How does it feel in your body? Are there any colors that might be associated? Just a general feeling that you get being in this place. And then begin to notice all of the green in the room around you. Just let the eyes gently wander to green, wherever you see green. Noticing where green lives in your body, how it makes you feel. Inhaling green, exhaling, letting it go. And begin to notice the blues. Where are the shades of blue in the room around us? Inhaling blue, exhaling, letting it go. Noticing red. Where are there shades of red in the room around us? Feeling the sensations of red in our body. Inhaling, exhaling, letting it go. Now begin to scan the room for shadows. Where do you see shadows, areas of darkness? And now begin to bring in lightness. Where do you see light? Perhaps coming in from the sun, or areas that feel lighter in your body. Notice which areas you might feel more attracted to. Inhaling in lightness and darkness, and exhaling, letting go. Beginning to notice textures. Maybe textures first in your hands, your legs, and then texture in the room around us. Something smooth, maybe soft. All the textures that make up this space. And then coming back to our anchor points. Noticing belly rising, belly falling, belly rising, belly falling. Take a moment to sit with yourself and notice if you can gently ease the sharpness between your body and the room around you. Feeling softening between the edge of your body and the space around you. And as you're ready, open your eyes, join us in the room. So this is an example of two tools. First is anchor point breathing, bringing a hand to the belly and the chest, soothing and comforting our nervous system, some of our major organs, giving them support, our hearts and our belly. And then also resourcing the room. So this is a way to intentionally allow people to arrive and specifically notice what's making up the room around them, so that we're not trying to figure it out. We're not feeling like we've really been jarred from the environment that we came to this one. It's a softening, and then it's also a trust. So once I understand and I've given myself time to acquaint myself in the space that I am, my mind begins to relax. It doesn't have to make sense of so much. And then also we give ourselves permission to notice where we're attracted. So I only did a couple colors. You could go through as many as you want there and use your intuition, make your own cues, notice different things in the room that might be calling out, or you feel particularly good about in that space, just to bring everyone together in that space. So we're going to move on to trauma-sensitive environments. So the idea behind creating a trauma-sensitive environment is overall that triggers or strong emotions often get activated by the senses, right? And so if we reduce the activation of our 5, 6 senses in our environment, then that potentially allows the mind to ease. So, a particular trauma sensitive environment would limit smells, visual stimulation, bright colors, noises for the comfort and safety of participants. Now, adding light and openness is usually helpful, but in a traditional environment, when we're going to, let's say, work out, we might have really bright lights, or we might have loud music. In a yoga program, we might have incense or oils. And to the extent that you can, I would take all of that away so that the environment is not stimulating any outside reminders. And I thought it would be also important to talk about what is actually happening in our brain when, let's say, a smell or the behavior of another participant does trigger us. And then also what happens to our learning during that time when we're outside of what's known as our window of tolerance. So I really like Dan Siegel's hand as a brain model. So we all can make a fist, and basically this fist is a model of our brain. And we look to see that our wrist is the spine, and where our wrist connects to our hand, that is our brain stem. So the very basic functions of being human, going to the bathroom, temperature regulation, these kind of things, they happen in our brain stem, and they're mostly automatic. We can develop some control over them, but they're mostly automatic. And then if we look where our thumb is, this is our midbrain, and this is where we process emotions. So our thumb represents our hippocampus, which is like our scrapbook. All of our physical memories are stored there. And then on top of the hippocampus is a little almond-shaped part of the brain called an amygdala. And amygdala is kind of like our fire alarm that is reactive to stronger emotions. So as you can imagine, the emotions can trigger memories, memories can trigger emotions. And what happens is that when our brain is coasting along casually, our lid is on, our frontal lobes, our higher processing is on. But when we are activated by our memories, in connection to our senses and our emotions, our lid starts to flip, and our thumb or our hippocampus and amygdala, they flip our lid. And now our brain is offline. And so we don't have access to this higher thinking, our frontal lobes anymore. And so what part of the brain do we have? We have our emotional brain, and we have our basic function brain. And neither of those gives us the results that's in our higher knowledge and shows our intelligence. So how do we keep on our lid for these programs and anything else in life? Well, our entry point is breath, because breath regulates our nervous system and has a direct connection with the function of the brain. And also by staying in what's known as our window of tolerance. So everyone has a different size window. Some is just a little one on the side of a boat, and some is a big bay window. And this is because of our different life experiences. And sometimes we don't even know how big our window is one day because of something happening that morning or some repressed emotions that we've had for a while. But the idea is that if we're looking clearly out of our window of tolerance, then our lid is on or mostly on, and we can learn and we can receive information. But if we're outside of that window and our lid is flipped, then we can't learn because we don't have access to this thinking part of our brain, and we're just reacting. And so when we combine gentle breath movement and reducing stimulus and triggers, then we're more likely to stay in our window of tolerance, to keep our lid on, and to keep learning. So this is the goal of trauma-sensitive facilitation. If the lid has been flipped in the program, it's already a bit too late. So a lot of people want to know, how do we handle someone who is actively triggered or, let's say, has a flashback? We're not going to go into that in this program, because the idea is we are learning all of these tools to make that not happen. All right, so moving on, I will offer a tool that can, let's say somebody's lid is about halfway, right? And they might have come in halfway. Something you said might have accidentally triggered them, or, it's just things come up as part of healing, and we can notice that as facilitators. So here is a 5 senses grounding that you can use either to the whole group, or you can use this one-on-one with an individual who might be needing some more support before or after a program. And it's as simple as this. You ask 5 things that the person can see or the group can see, 4 things they can touch, 3 things they can hear, 2 things they can smell, and 1 thing they can taste. And you can do this in meditation form, similar to how I did the resourcing the room. So we could come to our anchor points, ground ourselves, feeling our sits bones in the ground beneath us, letting our spine become long and tall, noticing the breath, and then with our eyes soft, answering in our head, what are 5 things I can see? Labeling them specifically. Oh, I see a tree. I see some birds. Okay, and giving some time and then moving on. What are 4 things you can touch? You don't have to be touching them, but what are 4 things that you can feel or that you can see that might have a different texture? And so going on, hearing, smell, taste. You can use your own cues, things that you're excited about. But the idea is that you can insert this at any time. You don't have to use all 5 senses. You could use a few. And it helps people come back into their own body and realize that wherever they were going with memories or emotions, that is a valid experience for them. But there's also another reality that's soothing in the room right now, and we give them the chance to come back to that. I also like, if I see some agitation in the group, to try to use humor. So a good way to either weave in some humor or be really specific about it is like, and as we're moving through, does anyone notice the bad hair day I'm having? Or a really specific question that, like, their meditation and noticing some agitation, could ask to count how many fingers am I holding up, how many chairs are in this room. Again, these are things that maybe seem a little bit jarring if you're quite used to yoga and meditation, but if your mind is just trying to escape from your body, these kind of tools will bring you back into the moment and give a chance to go further with the program. I always offer in my opening containers the ability to take what you need. So if any participant wants to leave or relax and not pay attention to exactly the cues that I'm giving, they are fully welcome to do that, as long as it's not affecting the experience of another person. So giving permissions is huge, and I'll talk more about that in a minute. Okay, this minute. Talking about trauma-sensitive language. This is a mnemonic that I've come up with that helps with language, because language is a big one. I would say more than knowing alignment or proper cues or some kind of tradition that you're teaching from. Being comfortable and caring with your language will help everyone that attends go further with whatever they need personally. Staying in their upstairs brain, in their window of tolerance. The number one thing that you can do is to provide that comforting, but also guiding voice. And the main way that you can do that is by regulating your own nervous system. So first and foremost is teacher self-care. And if we're showing up to environments frazzled, even owning that, like taking a moment to check in with yourself and say, this is where I came from. Not to the point, again, that it's affecting the experience of other participants significantly, but perhaps if you check in with yourself, then you can be more present with your body and your language for the people around you. Also, in general, I say that speak like you're talking to a 7-year-old child. And again, this is for particularly trauma-sensitive environments because often the challenges, the trauma, the beliefs that we have established that consciously or subconsciously guide our entire life, they happen before the age of 7. So if we are getting triggered or if we're feeling sensitive, it might seem strange, but our subconscious responds to that gentle parental voice like we were 7 years old or younger. Another great thing to do is invite kids 7 and under to your programs. And if they can understand, that's a good sign that it's appropriate level for everybody. And also just in general, using we versus I language. So I often say, welcome into the room. We're going to take big breaths rather than kind of pointing fingers like you. Notice your belly rising, right? Just notice belly rising. Trying to keep everything participatory. The teacher is participating as well, even though you are the instructor. So we try to stay with this language of let's breathe together, let's move onto our mat, let's take a moment to reflect. This language is really inclusive. So starting with the C of CHOPS, we have concrete and subtle language. So there's a lot of things that are said in traditional self-reflection programs that are really lofty, like find your inner peace, completely relax your mind. And for traumatized populations, this firstly seems unattainable. And it also can be disorienting, like melt away your body, completely let go. So what I would cue to is concrete and specific cues instead of things more subtle like letting go or trying to reach a goal. So some examples of that, you might have noticed I said bring your hand to your belly and your hand to your chest. That's very specific. I didn't say inhale and exhale. I actually said notice your belly rising and notice belly falling. And that helps release any connections that we might have with the actual idea of breath and inhaling and exhaling, and getting everybody to notice what's actually going on inside of my body. I cued when to notice for your heart rate specifically, rather than notice what you're feeling in your body. Could even have cues like notice if you're feeling any comfort, notice any anger. The more specific you can be, the better. Okay, moving on to highlighting the positive. So traumatized populations have a lot of experience with negativity, and the mind naturally goes there anyways for all of us. So focusing on the positive helps rewire the brain against our negativity spiral. Also cueing to strongly uncomfortable emotions, overwhelming emotions, often starts us feeling them more. So you don't have to be super optimistically positive, but it's just staying in that realm of noticing the things that do feel more comfortable, we want to feel in our body, and just letting the rest go. It's not necessary to focus there. We already do that enough. And one tip that you can use both for the positives and the specifics, you might have noticed that I used in our grounding meditation, our resourcing room, is allow a drop of some type of emotion or feeling to flow through you. So maybe don't feel it overall, just allow it drop. Or allow yourself to feel 10% more comfortable rather than find some comfort. Maybe comfort is not going to come today, but 10% more, that's a step. Open-ended outcomes. So as you cue, or just trying to cue towards noticing rather than achieving. So an example of this is using the word should. You should be feeling tingling. You should be relaxed by now. You should be sweating. The mountain of should. How about let's just get rid of all of that and notice how hot am I in my body? How relaxed do I feel? Or what sensations do I feel from my fingers to my toes? That's another cue that's commonly used in trauma-informed language is cueing to sensations in fingers and toes, because when we're stressed, all of our sensations go to our critical organs, which is in our core, in our head. And so if we're noticing what's going on in our hands and our fingers, then the body is typically more relaxed and sending circulation energy all the way to the extremities. So reminding ourselves to keep putting awareness there. Permissions. Okay, so we're always offering, so I don't say close your eyes, I say allow your eyes to close. That's invitational language. You can do this if you want. Or you can participate in this program in the way that you want. You can, I like to say, as a yoga teacher, I'm here for creative inspiration. And if what I suggest isn't meeting you today, do something else that does or doesn't look like yoga. Now, that's not saying don't do yoga. And it's also not, so there's a delicate balance between offering permissions and the last point of language, which is being simple and direct. So for permissions, I want to say don't use don'ts. So don't resist or don't put your foot like this. Cue, again, stay with the positive. Say what we want to do, what we want to happen. And also with permissions, let's just remove the word just from our cueing. It's difficult. You might notice that you do it a lot. I do it and I teach this because, in common language, you hear it a lot and it's almost impossible to completely change the way that you speak if you are an engaged human in the world. But that being said, just the way we use it in mindfulness, just breathe, just relax, makes this assumption that it's easy to do that. And that can be triggering. And so allowing for anything to happen once we move in a certain way. So I just always come back to noticing. Okay, we move, we breathe, we do something. Notice what's happening in your body. Cueing again to temperature sensation, beating of the heart, colors, overactivation, underactivation. These are good cues that don't lead participants in a particular way, which gives a lot of permission. And then being simple and direct. So I think I've touched on this before, but I like to give the example of a body scan versus meditation. So a body scan is going through each part of the body. Notice your toe, notice your foot, notice your ankle, notice your blah, blah, blah. And then allowing us to feel sensation there. So that's really specific and there's like a guide to the process versus what do you notice in meditation? That's like, whoa, what can I be noticing? And sometimes the brain starts churning when we're given too many options. So there's a fine balance between permissions and being simple and direct. But in the balance, I still choose permissions, just limit the amount of options. Okay, so another tool that is great to use at the beginning of the program, in the middle, at the end, anytime really, is tapping. Because you can be sitting, standing, laying. It's for all ages. It's for all health levels. And actually, it's something that you can really easily get people to teach others, so I really quickly like to allow participants to teach each other if possible. It's a totally new energy and it's very empowering. So for tapping, take the 3 middle fingers and bring them to the hairline. You can allow your eyes to close or keep them open. I'll keep mine open. Begin to tap along the hairline, starting with the forehead, moving down to the temples, with whatever speed and intensity feels good to you. Coming to the jaw. I know I often have a sore jaw. Just spending a little time there. Moving around to the cheeks and the bridge of the nose. Coming down to the sides of the mouth and the chin. Tapping our lips. Then moving down to the sides of the neck, the throat. Crossing the arms and tapping our collarbones. Our collarbones in particular help to relax our nervous system, and crossing the arms gets the left and right side of the body to talk to each other, and the left and right side of the brain. And then we'll continue down, tapping the shoulders or patting the shoulders, opening the hand, giving ourselves a little pat, coming down the arms, the elbows, then uncrossing the hands, bringing our pat to the side of the body, the waist, down into the hips, noticing the outer legs, the knees, coming to the shins and the calves, giving our feet a little love. Then make your way back up, slowly and steadily, having the option to stop any part of the body that feels supportive or relieving to you. Noticing as we continue tapping, belly rising, belly falling, and gently making our way back up to the arms, crossing them, bringing them to the collarbone, and then giving ourselves some pats or some taps on the face and the head. Using this time to come back to whatever area on the face felt most comfortable for you. And releasing the hands down, grounding the feet into the ground beneath you, feeling energy from the bottom of the feet up into the top of the head. Notice any sensation you might be feeling in your fingertips. Noticing the feet and the toes. Inhaling, I am. Exhaling, here. Nice. And you might notice that I stuck with the outside of the body. In other groups, I might have everybody rub their belly and their butt and that kind of stuff, but not for this particular audience. Okay, and I've talked a lot about our trauma-informed container, and I haven't really properly introduced it. So the container is the verbal message that you set at the beginning of a program to say, what is this program? And what can I expect? So I'll go through the elements of a trauma-informed container, and then you might be able to pick out some of the ways that I set up this program, for example. First is storytelling. So some kind of story about the organization that you're working with, who you are as a person. Humans learn through story. So the first way to connect and establish trust is just a little bit of storytelling. Addressing underlying needs and safety needs. So this can be everything from physically on my person, where's the bathroom, where's water, is there going to be food on this program, am I going to be able to lay down, sit up, just any needs that you know might come up as a result of the content of your program. So if it's a 45-minute program, the needs are going to be less than, let's say, if it's a 4-day program. And also considering the space here, if the space has any needs. So is the door going to be locked? Are there windows? Are people going to be able to see in through the windows, or are we going to close them? Trying to, again, reduce any kind of sensory input and also distractions. Or if you can't, that's why we have the container to establish expectations. Simple participation options. So because you're in the comfort of your own home, I didn't let you know our options for opting out of this program right now. But if this was in real life, I would let you know that anything I suggest, if you are not comfortable participating, you can always place your hand on your heart. So that might be moving, that might be sharing, and there's no judgment, and I'll know that you don't want to participate, or I won't call on you. It's nice to do hand on heart because usually in programs, I'm the one facing everyone. And so, and then I can see all the hands on heart, but nobody else really can. I can also do this laying down at different times as well. In general, we don't do any adjustments or hands-on manipulations in these types of classes, but otherwise I would also ask if you don't want to be touched during this program, bring your hand to your heart. And then again, the power of 2 feet, where and in what capacity you can leave if you need. I usually have tissues available, water, and if it's a longer program, I try to support every need that I see coming up. Now, being realistic based on the constraints of the program and what's available to you, your needs might be really short or they might be extended. Another good example of this is asking, I'm switching around a little bit, is asking if people have any particular mobility needs or limitations, right? So just creating more comfort for everyone who might show up, especially in a public program where you don't know people, it's hard to guess. Having a clear schedule. So again, that can look differently. It could look like something written on the board, or it can be verbally said. I let you know that this training is about 60 minutes, and so that's all I did for the schedule, plus adding an agenda. Gratitude, so saying thank you for showing up, and I'm kind of laughing because I didn't do that at the beginning of this program, and so at this moment, just take a moment to thank yourself for showing up to this training. You've made it this far. You haven't turned off the video. So congrats to you on your patience and your attention. And that is my moment of gratitude for you people who care enough to help others go further. Stated agreement of non-judgment. So saying something to the effect of whatever you experience in this program is totally okay. I usually also add confidentiality in there. You're welcome to share the experience of this program, your personal experience with anyone else, but not something that you notice from another participant. And then depending on the constraints, again, I can say we can open up a conversation about that agreement if anyone else would like to add something or have more feedback there. Reassurance to take what you need. So I like to say if you lay down in final relaxation for the next 60 minutes and that's what you need, that's okay. And yeah, that's an example of bringing in a little bit of humor as well. So we're working in our upstairs brain when we can use and receive humor. So that's always a good sign that our nervous systems are relaxed. Okay, and moving on to a few more best practices. So I did mention teacher self-care. I just want to go a little further and say that as humans, we have mirror neurons, which means the neurons that guide all of the information that gets sent from our brain to our body and our body to our brain are reacting to the neurons of other people, how theirs are firing and wiring. And so if I show up at a certain nervous system activation level, it's impossible for you with your mirror neurons not to pick up on that. And it's much more significant for children. So know that the way you show up is what's going to be reflected back to you. And we're not perfect, and so many of us are doing this in our extra spare time. But don't push yourself too hard. If it's a time in your life that you can't teach, don't teach. And it will always cycle back around so that you can have some more self-care and then give when your cup is full. Intake forms. So especially with public programs, it's great to know serious injuries, ailments, that sort of thing, and to mention in the container, what is being addressed for those types of challenges. And then you can know, do you need to have bolsters, chairs? I mean, a best practice would always be to have chairs in the room, and different ways that people can support themselves during the program. Less assumptions, more personal growth. I like this one because usually as teachers, we're people that like to learn and we like to figure things out. And so we'll often look at a student and be like, oh, their body's tense, they must be stressed. Or, oh, they're really relaxed in that pose. I bet their brain is going to a really nice place. And truly, we don't know. There's a good guess that we could have for why somebody's body or why the things they're saying, but we don't know because probably they don't even know. Healing is tough, and exploring our mind and our body connection is tough. So I encourage you as a teacher, just don't make any assumptions, and using that word just. But don't make any assumptions so that everyone can figure out their own things. Continue to provide support and permissions so that participants can befriend their bodies and figure things out in a supportive way. Notice the individual, cue to the group. So this one is really a good example of this is that 5 senses meditation. So if you're noticing that one particular person looks very agitated, I said don't make assumptions, right? But that's more like don't share it with the person, don't try to figure it out. This is, you can sense the energy and you're seeing that it needs to shift. So one of the things that you can do to calm down the energy would be tapping. One of the things that you could bring someone back into their body is the 5 senses meditation. So sometimes I'll notice that an individual needs some more support, and I will notice the individual and cue a tool to the entire group. And that takes some time and some practice, but you can definitely get there. So the idea is we're pulling everybody along, and it's nice to feel held that way. I know that some teachers have done that for me, and I can feel it, and whether or not everybody else notices, it's a beautiful thing. Okay, I already mentioned vague versus concrete, so let's go on, and no hands-on adjustments or modifications. Your pro tip for this one is to create content with more gentleness and relaxation than you may traditionally offer. So whatever typical program you have, the trauma-sensitive one, just make it a little slower and make it full of a little more ease. Okay, so before I go through our review, I thought I would just give you one final trick, which is shaking. So if tensions get a little bit intense, or we actually need to wake up some stagnant energy, we can just shake. Start by shaking the hands, shaking the shoulders, shaking the neck, letting it go down into the legs and the belly, just giving a little shake. You've been sitting for a little while now. You can stand up, kick out your legs, jump up and down. So this is our natural stress relief response. When animals get scared, particularly rodents, and they freeze, then that takes up so much energy to make their muscles all tight. And so what do to release and relax that and get it out of the system? They shake. So that's one reason that running is so great. It's just a full body shake, but we don't have to always go out for a run. We can just shake our body and get rid of whatever we don't want to hold on to. And then noticing, do you feel the feeling of soda in your fingertips? You're aware of sensation in your feet. Noticing belly rising, belly falling. gently soften any areas that could use a little bit more comfort, and bringing ourselves back to our review. So, creating an appropriate verbal container. We have some tips and some tools there, things to add. You'll get better and more pithy and know what a program needs as you go. But it's a good idea in the beginning to write it down as a little script. And always, I start all of my classes and programs saying, what are the needs? What's the container? Okay, now here's the program. Because it's easy to forget. It's not normal for these kind of containers to be set for programs, but I find that they're really appreciated. And even subconsciously, people feel a lot more at ease. If you reduce sensory input, you reduce triggers. So noticing what can we actually control about the environment, and then what can I control about my cueing, and what tools can I add to reduce sensory input, calm the nervous system, and reduce triggers. I gave you some movement tools, which I call meet the mood with breath and movement. So notice where the mood is, and without first trying to change it. It's like kids coming in from the playground. They're really hyped up, and teachers like, sit down, pay attention. Our brain really doesn't like that. It likes slow and steady steps. So what we could first do is mirror the actual movements and where people are coming from, and then we guide to the place that we all want to end up. So with the public class, people are coming all over the map. It's very difficult, but if we combine a couple different tools, we'll probably get where we need to go. Be specific, guiding, and welcoming with language using CHOPS. And of course, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. I tell myself this one all the time. So thank you for showing up with me. Thank you for showing up what you do in life. And let me know how it goes.